Hello, I'm Rick Fulbaum, news anchor at WANF in Atlanta, and welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. The 2026 debate series was made possible by grants to the Atlanta Press Club from the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation and the Robert Charles Loudermilk Sr. Foundation. This is the debate for Republican candidates running for Georgia Superintendent of Schools. We have two journalists who will question the candidates. Martha Dalton is an education reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Mei Shu is a digital news editor at WABE in Atlanta. And I'm going to kick off today's debate asking each of the candidates to introduce themselves and tell viewers why they should be Georgia's next superintendent of schools. Candidates will have 60 seconds to introduce themselves. We'll go in alphabetical order, starting with Fred Bubba Longgrear.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. I am Fred Bubba Longgrear. Just want to thank the Atlanta Press Club for hosting this event. I want to thank my family for being so supportive throughout this run. So many supporters throughout. I'm a 30-year Georgia educator. I've been a superintendent of a local district for the last 11 years. I'm the president of the Georgia School Superintendents Association. I'm on Governor Kemp's Superintendent Advisory Council. And I'm also on the Georgia Literacy Council. And I just feel like that I'm running because there's time for a change. Our incumbent's been in office for 12 years, and I feel like that we need some new leadership that's willing to collaborate, work with others, and really take Georgia to a bright future. So I'm hope to be able to earn your vote today, and thankful for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, sir. Superintendent Richard Woods.
Well, today, again, we're going to hear a lot about several subjects. One of literacy, which for my opponent, that means the reality is since 2021, his literacy scores have been below the state average. He'll talk about safety. The reality is after 3 years under his leadership, he has failed to receive the Georgia Seal of Readiness issued by GMA. We'll talk about endorsements. The reality is I'm endorsed and have been endorsed by the people of Georgia, the educators of Georgia. What he won't talk about is the $1 million of dark money that is propping up his campaign. My opponent will do a lot of talking, but I'm a leader with real results and real action. I ended Common Core, brought back phonics, cursive writing, personal finance, raised literacy scores and graduation rates throughout the state, and also saw over $9,000 in teacher pay. Again, I am an individual who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk.
Thank you, sir. For the full set of debate rules, please visit atlantapressclub.org. Now our panel will ask a question to an individual candidate, and we'll start with Martha Dalton, who will ask a question for Richard Woods. Once again, you have 60 seconds for your response. Martha.
Superintendent Woods, you mentioned that literacy will be a topic of discussion today. As you know, the legislature passed a big literacy bill this session. There was some criticism of your department regarding communication while that bill was being put together. Some of your opponent, some lawmakers endorsed your opponent as a result of that. What is your response to that criticism, and what is your relationship like with lawmakers? What would it be like if you were reelected?
Well, I think it's ongoing. One of the things we looked at is that, for individuals who said I've been disengaged, then I would just show where have I missed appointments, where have I missed, invitations to come and speak each and every time. That being said, with literacy, I think we have to look at what has been accomplished. I did get rid of Common Core. I hired a literacy coordinator, Amy Denty, the best in the state. Hired a literacy coach who was the best in the state, Nick Fullman. We trained teachers throughout the state of Georgia in preparation of our new standards that we rolled out this year. Once again, 3 years ago, I did ask the General Assembly for coaches. Had to wait until this year in which they put that into being into the literacy bill itself. But in doing so, what I did is I did put coaches into our lowest performing schools. And since that time, we've seen at least a 15-point gain in literacy. I will continue to work with our legislators, as I did this year. I did meet with the Speaker's Chief of Staff to address literacy, and also met with the Lieutenant Governor and his staff to address literacy.
You,
so again, to say that I've been disengaged is somewhat disingenuous.
Superintendent Woods. Mei Shu, please ask a question of Bubba Longgrear.
Dr. Longgrear, you received around 29% of the votes in the primary election. How do you plan to capture a greater percentage of the votes in the runoff election against an incumbent who has won 3 elections for this very role?
Yeah, you know, our goal initially was to make it to a runoff, and we barely slid in, but we did, and we've just been working hard. We've been traveling around, meeting with groups, just trying to communicate the opportunities that we have for Georgia in public education right now with this election. You mentioned a 3-term incumbent. There's a lot of people that feel like it's time for a change of leadership, and to see if we can be innovative and lead Georgia moving forward in public education. So we're just hustling, working, and getting out, and you know, doing opportunities like this. And I would just ask the Georgia voters to really look at the 2 candidates. You know, my opponent says there's a lot of talk, but I've been leading in a district for 30 years. I've had success. We are graduating competent, capable students and partnering with community to build a better Georgia through education.
Thank you, sir. May, it's your turn to ask a question of Richard Woods.
Superintendent Woods, if you were to be reelected, what do you feel you can improve in the future about the way you've approached your role as superintendent in the past?
I think always, for every individual, we have the opportunity to improve, and I think we always want to improve. As we continue to move forward, as we hire individuals within the Department of Education, we'll continue to hire individuals that are top-notch. You know, and we have done that throughout the past. Again, you look at the agency, one that moved from a compliant agency to one that is now serving support. And we have served our state well throughout the years since being in office. Once again, we think about, you know, our literacy and math foundation, you know, expanding opportunities for our kids in personal finance. When we look at individuals as well, we want to say, hey, can we do more than just attend college? And we've expanded our options for our kids and graduation options throughout the state. We're seeing, you know, rises in literacy rates. We're seeing opportunities like never before throughout our school. And one of the things we look at, you know, is definitely results. We continue to expand, you know, our ability to communicate. We've been able to look at things and make sure that we're moving forward in the state of Georgia.
Thank you, sir. Martha, it's your turn, and you have the last question of this round for Bubba Longgrear.
Dr. Longgrear, as you mentioned, you've been in education for 30 years. You've worked in 2 different districts, Tatnall and Candler counties, but those districts have a couple thousand students. If you were elected to lead the state, there are 1.7 million students that you would be overseeing, essentially. How do you prepare to make that transition?
Great question, Martha. Thank you for that. Yeah, I have been in small rural districts, but I'm very connected statewide across the state of Georgia. But I believe bringing a small, singular focus to the Department of Education will be healthy, bringing it down to the individual level of every child. And I'm a team builder by nature. I empower, I engage, and support, and I would build a big team, a good team around me that has the same focus on improving student achievement, engaging with stakeholders, serving our local districts, being fully accessible to teachers, leaders, and legislators to work together to build a better education system in Georgia. Even though coming from small districts where it's much more personable, I think my experience doing each of those individual jobs will give me a greater perspective to lead on a statewide level.
And that concludes our first round. Each candidate will now ask a question to their opponent. You'll have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and the person who asked the question will then get a 30-second rebuttal. Bubba Longgrear, please ask your question for Richard Woods.
Yes, sir. Richard, you've served as state school superintendent for nearly 12 years, and you're asking voters for another 4-year term. If you are not reelected for some reason, what would Georgia's students, teachers, parents, and local school districts lose by having new leadership in the Georgia Department of Education?
Well, what they would lose would lose a pathway of success that I brought. Again, higher graduation rates, opportunities for kids in fine arts, you know, throughout the state, career, you know, tech opportunities, teachers that have a support of an individual who has been a teacher and remains a teacher at heart. But again, I think the real question is, for all Georgians, is that we should be asking is, why are establishment Republicans supporting my opponent? Why is the shadowy dark money propping up his campaign with over $1 million? What endorsements and what, you know, questions have been asked? What promises have been made behind dark rooms? What is the agenda of this group? We talk about agenda, and my opponent talks about an agenda, but again, these people expect something in return. And so my question to my opponent is, why not address this issue? Because you can say what you're going to do, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of shadowy individuals who are hiding from Georgia, and the question is why?
Dr. Longgrear, it's your turn for a rebuttal.
Okay, back to my original question before I address yours. You know, after 12 years, parents and students and leaders are frustrated with the lack of engagement and collaboration. I believe the state school superintendent needs to be the key ambassador for Georgia, and a change in leadership would benefit that. The only promise I've made is when I get up every morning, I'm going to work as hard as I can to make Georgia public education the best that it can be for our 1.8 million students and their families.
Richard Woods, it's now your turn to ask a question of Bubba Long.
To my opponent, again, the district you lead has been recently placed on the at-risk or financial at-risk list by the Georgia Department of Audits for financial discrepancies. As superintendent, you declined to go through the mandatory training, and I guess why?
Okay. We had two findings recently with our audit department. One centered around an individual that was donating money for a scholarship for students, and we did not have a yearly contract to do that. The individual, graduate of Meadow High School, that donates $12,000 a year to a student to go and get a scholarship. The other was a livestock trailer that is owned by the school district that was being used by a young farmer family to deliver hogs to a livestock show. Those are the two reasons, which I think are very trivial and overreach in response to some of the flagrant accounting issues that are going on in districts under your watch. But that's trivial at best. But I have not declined to go to any training. The training has been rescheduled twice.
Mr. Woods, it's your turn for a rebuttal.
Leaders should leave their organization better than what they found it. My opponent is retiring, and his district is now in financial distress. He has been without the Georgia Seal of Readiness from GEMA for the past 3 years. He is below average in math scores. He is below average in performance scores. And for 4 straight years, he's been below average in reading scores. If you want to see what an individual is going to do in the future, just look what they have done in the past. And my opponent has been failing.
You're watching the Republican runoff debate for Georgia Superintendent of Schools. I have a question now for Dr. Woods. Superintendent Woods, in 2024, you moved to restrict the teaching of AP African American Studies under Georgia's divisive concepts law, a decision that drew a lot of pushback, not just from Democrats, but from members of your own party. You then reversed course. But back to the original decision. Why did you do that?
Well, as a member of the executive branch, my job is to enforce the laws that are passed by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor. In doing so and looking at the law, I was obligated to make that stand. And so when we looked at it, we reached out to the Attorney General to make sure, we were correct in that assessment. One of the things as we began to expand that was that there was a loophole that basically said that AP classes were exempt from the law and that college professors were exempt from the law. So if I had to go back, again, would I, reverse course? If it obtained or listed as it pertains to the law, then I will enforce it, because that's what I'm charged to do. Whether I like it or not, I have to make sure that I'm following the law. And that is, again, the proper role of the executive branch. And as a member of the executive branch, then I have fulfilled that obligation.
Thank you very much, sir. Let's go back to the panel now. And May, you have a question of the candidate of your choice.
Dr. Longgrear, we've mentioned literacy a lot in this debate already, but what is your plan to improve literacy rates in the state? The 2024-25 literacy proficiency rate among Georgia's third graders is currently 1/3.
Yes. In regards to improving literacy in Georgia, and my opponent attacks our literacy rates, which 50% of the state are below the state average. So. And I can talk more details, but as far as improving literacy rates in Georgia, I think that the legislation recently passed, providing more instructional coaches, literacy coaches specifically, I think we really need to look at the amount of time that we're allotting to reading instruction in elementary school, the activities that we're doing, how much technology is being used within that instruction, to be very cognizant of the fact is our are our efforts to improve literacy, are we lined up as well as we could be and should be? But I would form a team of teachers throughout the state, seek input from them, and continue to implement House Bill 1193 as passed.
Thank you, sir. Martha, it's your turn.
To Superintendent Woods, let's stay on the topic of literacy. Looking at the third grade rates, 65% of third graders reading on grade level or above, 35% of those same third graders are proficient or above in English language arts. I'm sure that's not where you'd like to see either number. What are your plans, if reelected, to improve literacy from where it is right now?
Well, the biggest plan we started was several years ago when getting rid of Common Core. Again, now we have phonics back into the classroom. This was a process in which we engaged hundreds, if not over 1,000 teachers throughout the state. So collaboration with our teachers is extremely important in what we've done. In doing so, what we've done, as well as that, 3 years ago, I called for coaches to be placed into our schools, at the elementary level. Initially, this was rejected by the members of the General Assembly, and until we had adequate funding, which again is now in place this year. Also, as we continue to look at that, I hired the best literacy coach, Miss Amy Denty, across the state. And again, so I'm putting the individuals in place that we need to have. And in conjunction with Amy, again, there is Nick Fullman that came out of Marietta City, an individual that definitely is excellent in that area. But also what we look at is that my opponent, he has a lot of flexibility. He could have adjusted his schedule at any time. He could have placed, curriculum in there at any time. So don't blame the state for something that we had no access to.
Thank you. Dr. Longgrear, since your name was invoked there by your opponent, I'd like to give you a chance for a rebuttal, and I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, to me, it's almost embarrassing that the state school superintendent is attacking one of his own districts to get to my leadership. In the district that I lead, which over 80% of the students are eligible for free or reduced lunch, our literacy scores are below the state average. Again, along with 50% of the other districts in the state, if you figure it like that. But our teachers, like many in those districts, are pouring into these students. Their third grade scores might not be where they are, but our students are graduating with successful opportunities.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to stay with you, Dr. Longgrear, and ask you, if you were to win, what are your first 3 concrete policy moves that you would make that differ from Superintendent Woods? And what measurable outcomes do you think that Georgians can expect by year 1?
Well, the first order of business for me would be to go in and really analyze the Department of Education in terms of customer service. I hear so many frustrations from districts throughout the state to where we cannot get to the DOE, we cannot get feedback from the DOE, we have a clarification that we need. That's the first. But safety is a priority. The superintendent has talked about safety seals and so forth, but I'm more interested in strengthening policy about classroom disciplines to support our teachers. Many are leaving the field because they don't feel supported in their classrooms with discipline. I would do everything I could to strengthen our policy. If there's a student that's consistently disrupting the learning of other students, disrupting the teaching that causes our teachers to want to leave the profession, I want to gain some strength and get back to where we are enforcing strict discipline policies.
Thank you, sir. May, your turn to ask a question.
Superintendent Woods, staying on the topic of school safety, you have also named school safety as a priority in your campaign. What would that continue to look like if you were to be reelected?
Well, of course, we're going to always continue to promote and ask for funding for school safety, with the General Assembly and, the upcoming new governor. In doing so, we've received, millions of dollars of grant. It's a line item fund to help support districts at the local level to fund, safety as well. Listening to what our districts need. One of the things we actually did is I approached the State Board of Education to have a talk with them to say, listen, we need a policy in which our districts need to actually talk with EMS and first responders to make sure that buildings are not an issue. But the Georgia Seal of Readiness, deals with a lot of preparation to make sure that our districts are looking at every angle so that they can enforce and make sure that they are preparing for any situation that takes place. Not just a shooter or some perhaps hostile individual, but looking at all forms of safety issues. And so we're going to continue to move forward with that, address and listen to our base of individuals across the state.
Thank you, Superintendent. Martha, it's your turn to ask a question.
Dr. Longgrear, I wanted to follow up on something that you mentioned about classroom discipline. Are you talking about going back to, say, zero tolerance policies? Can you get a little more specific with what you mean by safety?
Absolutely. I feel that many districts are hesitant to truly address classroom discipline measures. Our CCRPI rating is almost punitive in the sense that when districts respond firmly, assertively to classroom discipline, their scores are dinged. I think that's counterproductive. What I'm talking about is not a zero tolerance, but if there are students in the classroom that are consistently disrupting the learning of others, that are consistently making it difficult for teachers to do their job, we need to find another opportunity for them to learn elsewhere. Districts need to be emboldened to do that. We need to look at our CCRPI rating system to make sure that there are not pieces in there that are discouraging or punishing districts because they're actually firmly responding to student discipline.
Thank you, sir. May, it's your turn.
Superintendent Woods, you've previously stated that you support cuts to property tax, which funds public education in the state. How will you continue to respond to ongoing pushes by state lawmakers to cut property taxes while ensuring that public education is properly funded?
Well, I think, in a statement, as any individual, and again, as a property owner, I think one of the things we want to look at is how do we relieve that tax burden. But also in conjunction with that, I've always stated that there needs to be an action taken by the General Assembly to ensure that our schools are adequately funded. We are constitutionally obligated to make sure that all of our public education schools are funded through the state of Georgia, and I will continue to look at that. That will be first and foremost. Before any cuts are made, before any decisions are made, we want to make sure that we are addressing the funding process to make sure that each and every child has the ability to receive the best education, the quality education they deserve, because once again, as they continue to move forward, we want to prepare them for life and give them those opportunities. But I want to make one thing clear. I am not criticizing the teachers of the state of Georgia. I am not criticizing the districts of Georgia. But what I am criticizing is, again, a sitting superintendent who has failed to do the job to move things forward and will bring those results to the state.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Martha, it's your turn.
On the topic of funding, may I ask to both?
Sure.
Okay. On the topic of funding, I'd like to hear what each of you thinks of Georgia's current funding formula for schools. It's been in place for 40 years. There have been some tweaks to it, but not a lot of changes. I know, Superintendent Woods, your office has supported some changes legislatively, but I'd like to hear from each of you, and we'll start with Superintendent Woods, on what changes you would like to see, if any, to the QBE, the formula.
Well, definitely 1985 looks a lot different than 2026. I was in the classroom at that time. We did not have the technology. We did not have, the rising population we have or some of the challenges that we have today. But I think when you look at CCRP, or not CCRP, but the QBE formula, one of the things I've been critical of is that the state has tried to take on and eat the whole elephant at one time. And I believe we need to be very cognizant of that because we're talking about radical change.
What does that mean? Eat the whole elephant at one time?
Well, again, when they've tried to address changing the formula, what they have done is that they looked at the entire formula. And I think we have to be very specific about how we want to make those changes to see what are the financial repercussions that we see, across the board.
Thank you,
and that's why we
Superintendent
looked
Woods.
at some things like transportation individually.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Longgrear, same question to you, please.
Yes. We hear a lot of talk about QBE funding and the antiquated nature of that. Similar to my opponent, maybe stated a little different, but as I hear people talking about totally revamping and doing away with QBE and starting over, I think a better strategy would be, and I would be willing to lead this as a state school superintendent, is get a group of people together that truly understands school finance, how can we identify those areas that are most antiquated, that are most causing students to suffer, teachers to suffer? Let's work on those areas first, identify those areas that are strong, make sure we maintain that, and go in and systematically improve and enhance the system instead of totally redoing or throwing it out.
Thank you, sir. May?
Yeah, so staying on the topic of QBE, funding.
I apologize, May. I'm sorry. We needed to move on to the next round, so please forgive me. That's all the time that we have for questions. The candidates will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Superintendent Richard Woods, let's start with you.
Okay. Again, to all fellow Georgians, as state school superintendent, I've led with transparency, integrity, and honesty, not behind shadows of dark money, hidden agendas, or backroom deals. Even though the politics of the establishment have attempted to change me over the years, I've remained true to who I am, and that's a teacher with a title. One who has never compromised on what is doing best for our children, and I will never make that compromise as long as I serve you as state school superintendent. You deserve the best. I have given you my best, and I will continue to do so. I will be greatly humbled and honored for your support once again on June 16th. Thank you.
Dr. Longgrear, it's your turn for a closing statement.
Thank you again to the Atlanta Press Club. Thanks for having me here. You know, my opponent today has somewhat depicted me as a failed leader. And I've been a superintendent for 11 years. I was a high school principal for 7. I was nominated to state awards at both of those. I've served in poor rural districts, but I would ask you to look at those districts that I've been a part of leading and look at the opportunities that students have. Look at the engagement with family and community. Look at the support that teachers have gotten. I think it's time in Georgia. An incumbent is hard to beat, but I would ask each of the voters to really look at the two candidates, not just doing away with Common Core, not just one or two things. We need an innovative leader who is willing to work with all stakeholders to take Georgia to the level in education that it needs to be. I can do that. I ask for your vote and support. Thank you.
Early voting starts Monday, June the 8th, and it runs through Friday, June the 12th. Election Day is Tuesday, June 16th. We want to thank all of our candidates, thank our panelists as well. And we'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. I'm Rick Fulbaum. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.